Hi, it's Valeska. I'm with Arlington Mansfield Area YMCA. We're here at the Mansfield Training Center to show you a wall Yin Yoga class. If you have never taken a Yin Yoga class, the nice thing is that it is a slow, contemplative kind of class. You have the opportunity to get deeper into poses than you would in a standing or a yang style class. And we really have a chance to work into deeper and longer holds, getting into our connective tissues, our fascia, ligaments, and joints. These are kinds of things that we don't want to do quickly. Those tissues like cool, steady, longer holds. Longer holds doesn't mean that you have to stay in these poses if it hurts you. We want you to be pain-free. You just want to go to a point where you feel like you're doing something. We call that an edge. You don't want to go over the edge into pain. As soon as you hit pain, the body tends to tighten up, and then we're using our muscles and we're less likely to get into those deeper connective tissues. Some days we don't have a lot of energy, or things kind of hurt, hips, back, knees. And so the idea of putting a lot of pressure on joints isn't that fun. So if you have a back issue, or you're just feeling tired, or your hips are aching, and you want to have some more support, using a wall can be a really nice supplement. So this particular practice takes those yin poses, and we use the wall as a support for the legs. It is a really nice way to keep on doing something to work into our range of motion and have everything still supported where it might be uncomfortable. One way of doing that is to bring yourself close to a wall and then sit sideways, and then end up lying down and see if you can scoot your legs up the wall. It may not be the most graceful thing you've done all day, but it'll be worth it. So from here, with feet up the wall, our first pose will be also our opening and meditative pose. We're going to just let the feet start to slide down, let the knees open up to the side, and we're going to come into kind of a cobbler pose or a butterfly, depending on what you call it. So we're just letting the heels come down. If this is really not for you, it's not helping, scoot your seat back from the wall a little bit, and that might assist you in finding a place that works. We're going to try to relax as much of the muscle tissue in those hips and glutes and thighs as possible, so the heels are just working their way down toward your groin. The closer the heels come toward the groin, the more pressure you might notice. If possible, for our opening pose, you can just take one hand to the belly, one hand to the heart, if that feels good to you, and try to relax the shoulders down and breathe. Notice how the breath travels through the body. Feel that rise of the belly and the heart as you breathe in, and feel it settle down as you exhale. As you breathe in, be aware of how you're taking fresh oxygen into the body, really trying to fill the lungs. And as you exhale, think about releasing that breath and letting go of any tension, so that the face starts to relax, or the shoulders might feel closer to the floor. Follow the breath into the belly, deep down, as if you could breathe all the way down to the base of your stomach. And then let the exhale be a nice full exhale too. Breathe out anything you don't need. Breathing in, envision filling the body with that new oxygen. And as you breathe out, getting rid of that used breath, carbon dioxide, any tension in the hips, the belly, the legs, the groin. Feel yourself start to sink toward the floor. If at any time you feel uncomfortable or the head feels lightheaded, take a moment to come out. You can always put a little something under the head as well, an extra blanket. or some sort of support if that makes the neck and the head feel better. These poses tend to be held for several minutes. For this class, we'll do about 2 or 3 minutes in a pose. If you're at home, you can do any of these up to 20 minutes if that feels good to you. Let's go for another 4 or 5 slow rounds of breath. And then you can just release the hands, maybe toward the legs, and help bring the knees in, and slide your legs up. If it feels good, just kind of tap them out. You could make circles with your feet, or point and flex, or tap the knees, whatever feels good to you. A little bit of movement in between periods of stillness keeps us from stagnating. It's a nice little bit of change. So the next pose is just straight legs up. This is kind of the alternative to a forward fold from being seated. So if the legs are straight up and the heels are up, you can draw your toes down a little bit if you'd like just to feel that stretch. But then just let the legs relax. Again, if this is a bit too close to the wall for you, you can scoot yourself away so that your seat is not touching the wall. And that might feel a little bit better. Otherwise, just roll out the hands so the shoulders can roll out so that the back of the shoulders are supported on the floor. And feel the legs just grow heavy. This is a really nice activity, especially if you've been on your feet all day. It helps redistribute any fluids that might have settled around the ankles, the feet, the lower legs. It's a very restful pose. Let's take a few breaths here, just sink into it, and focus on that breath. We're about halfway through. If the mind gets active, part of the practice of yoga is to unify body, mind, and breath. Nobody expects perfect adherence. We just work toward that goal. So when you notice that the mind starts thinking about other things than your yoga practice, just try to acknowledge that the mind might have wandered. Take your attention back to the breath, to your place in the room and the pose. Find any little place in the body that might be harboring some tension and try to breathe out of those spots, feeling yourself soften. Let's take about 2 or 3 more rounds of breath here. And then if you like, just maybe move some feet here, toes pointing, or side to side, or you can tap the knees, or you could even bring knees to chest and kind of roll it in back and forth. Find something that feels good to you, gives you a little bit of a change. And then you might walk your feet back up. We're just going to open the legs, we call this a straddle pose, so you can let them go off to the sides here. If you are very flexible, you might need to make sure you've got enough room. Again, you could bend your knees if that helps, or just extend, reach out with the heels. And if you want, you could support your legs with something else like a block underneath. Otherwise, just feel like you're letting gravity slowly draw the legs toward the floor. And then your challenge might be to try to relax all of those muscles and tendons and ligaments on the insides of the legs and into the hips. Sometimes we carry tension that we don't even realize that we have. So when possible, envision those areas and try to breathe in and out of them, which anatomically doesn't make sense, but that kind of imagery might help. You can also sometimes think about changing the color of a tissue in your mind. If it feels tight, you might think of that as red or yellow. And then as the body starts to relax, envision filtering in other colors like maybe green or blue or something that feels relaxing and soft and receptive. You can let the hands rest on the inside of the legs if you need a little bit more, or you can simply take them by the side. Got about 1 more minute or so. Focus on that breath. If your edge has changed and the body opens up just a little bit more, you can go for that. Again, remember, don't go over your edge. Alternatively, if this is getting to be too much, you can always come out. And 1 or 2 more breaths. And to come out, remember that slow release. You might even use your hands to help draw your legs back in. And you might just bend the knees. You could drop them side to side a little bit, or take the knees to chest, or just shake everything out. Just shake them out, that looks good. So you can take your feet now in like a wide squat. So, or a happy baby version here. You're going to take your knees about as wide as they, you can keep them in front of the shoulders. It's a little bit less work. More work is to start widening out the feet from the hips. And if having the seat against the wall is difficult, scoot yourself back a little bit. We'll stay here for 2 or 3 minutes just to let us start to have this different kind of pose. It might feel a bit different than having the legs extended or have the knees bent. And again, feel this widening out. You can have your hands resting inside for just the weight of your hands. You're not going to be pressing. And then try to breathe and exhale into the hips. You might feel some compression or contraction in the hip joint. That's kind of where we're targeting. So if it hurts, please back off. Otherwise, play with the pose a little bit till you feel that point of doing something, that edge, and then just breathe. We'll take a few more breaths here. And then just slowly guide your knees in toward each other. Hips might say, ooh, I notice. And maybe hug them in or walk a little bit side to side. I'm going to go into something that's called Eye of the Needle. So the legs can come up and then take one foot and cross it over the other. So I'm just using the right leg here. And I'm going to try to let it slide to where the ankle crosses over the knee. So now that my ankle is somewhere underneath my knee since my leg is standing straight up, I'm rolling out the right leg that's bent. Now to make this more challenging, I'm going to start to bend the left knee or the leg that is extended. As soon as you bend the knee, it's going to put more pressure in the outer right hip, or the hip of the leg that's being pushed out to the side. Unless you're really flexible, most people are not going to be able to take their foot all the way flat here. You might even want to push yourself away a little bit from the wall to give yourself a bit more space. And then, if you like, you can have that heel closer under the knee and still feel some pressure in that outer hip. You can flex the knee to help, if that helps your knee feel secure. This is a very individual practice. If you need more, scoot yourself so your seat is against the wall. You can also have that foot away from, just across from the knee, or less intense is then to take that foot off the wall. And that decreases the compression in the ankle on the hip there. So if you're trying to relax into this pose and you're thinking, my knee hurts, you need to change. So we don't want the knee to compensate for tightness in the hip. So if the knee is hurting you, feel free to adjust your pose so there is less pressure on the knee. It doesn't do the joint any good to have it be in pain. So we'll take a few more breaths here. And then we can connect this into a twist. So you can just slowly start to work your way to your left side if your right knee is up. And you can keep that foot on the floor, or you can take your knees and put them together, or you can even cross your right foot under your left and keep your foot on the floor, which makes the knees come closer to the chest. If that is too tight, you can move yourself away from the wall so you can push your legs further off. Another option is then to add some more to the twist and take your right arm out to the side. If you can get your right shoulder to the floor, that's great, but it's not required. You're simply reaching in that direction. Let's take a few more rounds of breath. And then take your extended arm, if it's out to the side, and bring it over. And if your legs are in that twisted version, take it out and rest it on top of your lower leg. And then just slowly work your way back onto your back. And take a moment, if it feels good, to move the legs or shake things out or bring the knees to the chest, whatever works for you. Take, 10 seconds. So other side. Remember, you can have your seat against the wall or be a little bit removed. You can extend your right leg and take your left ankle on top of your right knee, and then you're going to roll out that knee. Maybe flex the foot. It might help your knee feel more stable. So this is where it gets to be a bit more challenging, is that slide of the supporting leg down the wall till you feel that place where you're doing something. Now remember, your sides are going to be different, so maybe you felt really deep on one side, you might not be quite as limber on the other. We have ways that the body is different from one side to the other. We sometimes have injuries or accidents, or simply the body is just not developed quite the same equally on one side to the other. So be mindful of what your body is telling you. No pain, just feeling that edge of discomfort where you feel like you're doing something. The goal is to stress, but not harm. We want to do a little bit of stress to increase the body's response to making the wellness happen here. People who go into space, who have no stress on the body, come back weaker. We need that tension, we need that stress to help us stay healthy. So the fine point is to find that edge where you are still doing something to work but not creating any harm. Find your edge and try to breathe. Let's give it a few more breaths. And let's blend it into that twist. So you might just roll onto your right side. Again, you might keep your, arrange my stuff here, keep your foot on the floor, or you could have your feet or legs lying on top of each other, or you can cross one under the other to get a bit more into the hip. And then you can add a twist factor here by opening up the chest and reaching out to the opposite side. Let's take 2 or 3 rounds of breath. And you might roll your shoulder over, separate your twist, get the legs on top, and unwind. And whatever feels good, shake it out. A little wiggle, 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 or if something else feels good, do that. We're going to come towards seated, so maybe roll onto your side, press into the floor, and bring your weight back up. So that was Wall Yin. Hope that you enjoyed it. Let's close for a moment here just to let ourselves keep that benefit of our practice. Let the mind settle, focus on the breath and the body. Take a couple breaths and send that energy toward the spine. Feel the muscles along the back relax. Feel the shoulders move away from the ears. Take another breath and feel the hips soften. That tailbone root to the floor. And on the next breath, just feel the legs melt toward the mat or the carpet. Let's close our practice with a long reach upwards. Envision gathering some breath, or some energy, maybe grace, taking it to your mind, your heart, your body. We finish with a phrase that means, the light in me honors that light in each of you, which unites us all. And the word we say is namaste. Namaste,